Hello everyone, I am Tacit and I'm going to be going over the new Gems of War Mythic of the Okra'Nos the Sleeper, as well as the Mythic from the current campaign that is ending this weekend. So the last few days to end up finishing out that. I figured we combine these two together because both of them are pretty mid, with Okra in particular getting nerfed into the ground before he ends up coming out. So this Mythic right here will be available for the next week in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests. This is definitely one of those things that if you're even going to bother getting a copy of, you definitely only want one copy of, and then stop opening them and wait until the following week's Friday, so that you don't waste any keys getting more than one of this thing. Because wow, did they nerf this thing into the ground. So this thing was originally going to come with Curse Silence on extra turn, which we hadn't had anything that had Silence extra turn in the game, let alone guaranteed, let alone also with Curse. However, they have instead completely nerfed its final ability, which was the only thing it had going for it, and made it a completely dead content troop, unfortunately. It now does a 50% chance to curse and or inflict terror on a random enemy when its turn begins. That's not on every enemy, that seems to be just on one singular one. It is very bad, as a little bit of score reduction, but of course there are better tank mythics out there. And its ability has always been bad, even before it got nerfed into the ground. It was always just carried by its final trait, which ended up getting nerfed before release. And its actual ability just deals a bunch of scatter damage boosted by curse and terrified enemies. Problem with this is there's a hard cap of this, because even if every enemy is alive, the most you can have is an 8 boost ratio for this, which does bring it to an okay amount of damage if you're in early game, but later in the game that is barely even a standard AoE troop. And then it gets to summon 1 to 3 daemons with no extra turn potential whatsoever, but it does have a lot of extra resummon. But generally if you want something like this that can mass resummon, you're normally going down the goblin route, where you can summon 1 to 3 while also spamming extra turns, so not much of a need to really go down this sleeper route. For them, and not to mention, daemons already have a lot of ways of resummoning generally already attached to them. I guess there's a little bit of synergy with Construct with what it has here, but nowhere's near enough where it's ever going to get used. So I figured we show some teams for this, show some teams for the Gorm that's in the current campaign pass, and yeah, go from there. First things first, let's go get this thing. Of course, we mentioned Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests, so we'll just do gem keys at the high amount until we pull him quickly. Or not quickly, let's see. Can we get him? We're 400 deep. Hopefully don't go true dry on it. Oh yeah, we do have the 8.8 patch out now, as you can tell from this wonderful new text. Definitely the biggest controversy of the most recent patch. And there we go. We did end up getting an Okra, as well as something that could technically synergize with it, with the terror on extra turn, though we will not be using it on any of the teams that we're about to go and mess with. But yeah, Okra, it is so sad. We were eventually going to get our first ever Silence extra turn mythic, but they had to nerf it before release. In all fairness, what it was going to be before with guarantee curse silence would have been absolutely insane. Though the thing that they could have done to fix it is, you know, not make it a 100% chance. They love just absolutely nerfing things like this to like 50% or something similar. They could have just done that to that and it would have been perfectly fine. But, yeah, let's go mess with them. Unfortunately, really bad mythic. I don't really see much of our context where you're going to be using this thing, but we're still going to try. Let's go and put them into all 3 of the teams, all which will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste them. And yeah, start messing around. Start from the top. And actually, I didn't give it an extra name, did I? I just called it Okra for the initial default one. Oh no, where do we want to go? Is Wild Plains at 12 right now? Yeah, we'll do Wild Plains. All right, so let's start from the top. So we have 6 teams we're going to be going over, as we're also going to be doing the Gorm a little bit in here. But let's start with the Okra team going with basically the Construct build. We did do 1 non-Construct, but otherwise this is kind of going into pure Construct with Geomancer. Geomancer has 50% mana start to all Constructs. Doing it then down that route, using Ossifer to offset it. We have Curse Stun off of Ossifer, which of course goes really well with his Curse Synergy they ends up needing. And we also have a little bit of extra Terror so they can get its max boost ratio so they can at least do as much damage as a Legend. So we're trying to at least get it up to that amount of damage. Because what is that? 16 times 8. I still haven't done the math on that. What is that? That is 96? Math? No. Mathing brain. It's too early in the morning. 128. So in best case scenario, it'll get 128 extra damage, which just say in the game is about 200 damage to everything, which is about, or 50 damage to everything, doing about 200 total damage, which is about the same as, actually it's slightly worse than if you just got the free Lana that you get basically with full mana instantly. It is actually worse than just casting Atlanta. In best case scenario, It is worse than just casting Atlanta. So that's great. Though it does get 1 to 3 summons, I guess, but only the final team will really be utilizing that of the 3 that we're going to be doing here. But yes, it is worse than the free mythic you get from Atlanta. Honestly, it's worse than the untraded free mythic from or free epic from Atlanta from Divinian Fields. Like, even if you have 0 traits, this is still stronger. That is so sad. But anyways, let's go mess with this thing. Yeah, they nerfed this thing super into the ground. That is very, very, very unfortunate. That's hilarious, though. Alright, so if we wanted to cast this right now, we could do, how much damage is this? 48? We, plus 71, what is that? 119. That is about 30 damage per enemy. That is worse than most epics would end up doing per cast. But, if nothing else, at least per turn, he might do a little something. So, of course, we also need Curse, so we're going to go and apply both the 2 stats effects. Since he can't really do it that well on his own, we're going to have to do it with Wand of Stars, then get all of our Terror. And now, look at that! He is now almost as good as Atlanta. And now, of course, we could cast it to do ability that is basically just slightly weaker Atlanta. Though it does have the benefit of concentrating onto a single target. But hey, look, there we got a Terror kill. That was more so the doll doing it than him, as I'm not sure if he's actually applied a single one yet. But, yeah, he's existing. He's doing something. At least he's reapplying it, so they'll get re-afflicted with it, if nothing else. Alright, let's go get our skulls. I kind of just had Ossifer here for damage, because obviously we have, like, 0 damage. I needed something to go boost up the damage, so I figured we just plop an Ossifer. It also has the Curse synergy. I mean, that's not him. But it also has the Curse synergy, so if we didn't already get Curse off a wand, we'd have better boost ratio for his basically non-existent ability. But we'll go try again. Come on, you can do a little bit of damage. You're almost there. Look, you almost got a kill. Look at that. You almost got a kill. So close, yet so far. I'm pretty sure we're going to get more kills off of Terror than we are of this guy actually doing damage. But there we go. But that is him. More so the doll plus Ossifer. Anyways, Okra status. This one also goes down a pretty heavy stats route. We're using Kafru to basically get Death Mark and a bunch of mana accumulation. We're using the Tangle Bomb to go with our triple damage Entangle, which we'll be getting off of Hero. We have Stun and Curse, both off of Hero, as well as maybe this thing will curse the right enemy. We also have Terror. It is the only thing doing Terror, so at least we'll be able to know for sure when he hits something, because this is the only thing in the whole team now that has the ability to apply Terror. So if something has Terror on the enemy team, then we know for sure this Mythic did something more than literally nothing during the duration of this battle. So if anything, this battle gets a Terror kill, we know that it was this Mythic doing something. But that is very unlikely. Okay, it did one or the other, so it only applied Terror. There are no Curse. So it seems like it rolls both of them individually. So instead of getting Cursed Terrored, he only ends up getting Cursed. Though now he ends up getting a Terror on it as well. I mean, sorry, I said that the other way around. He only got Terrored, but now he got Cursed and Terrored. So right now we're basically just trying to apply stats effect to absolutely everything on the opposing team so that we can start getting our Entangle and everything rolling. Do we need to curse them? Do you have immune to Entangle? No. Alright, we're fine. We just need to go and extra turn a little bit harder. So we'll go and do this, get brown mana for everything, get a little bit of terrors in there, or curses in there too, so that we can end up applying it in case they do have immune. Unfortunately, the only thing that needs to be entangled is the only thing that is not entangled right now. There we go, finally. So of course now we can do triple damage skull whenever we take a skull to do a bunch of damage pressure. We can use this guy to clean it up if we ever want to go and use his ability. But because it is towards the weaker end, we might just want to get it through natural means, just kind of have him apply a little bit of terror there, which will kind of shuffle around their team a little bit, potentially moving them into the correct location. But also sometimes move them into the wrong location since you don't really get to choose when the terror will end up applying there. We could let him do something if we want. Here, we'll let him do a little something. The final battle will be utilizing his, ability as well. His actual ability to summon. Though, of course, there are a lot of things in that category that can already end up summoning, so probably not going to end up doing too much there. Do we have enough damage to kill? Yeah, I think it's resistant to the ability. Hey, he does get to secure a kill here. Unfortunately, Terror did not do a single kill, but hey, you can go for that. Nor did Death Mark, oddly enough, even though we had some extra Death Mark to go with it. And let's go for the low rarity team. So this one is a, I wouldn't say standard sacrifice team, but definitely a sacrifice team. So this is basically running with whatever weapon you can scrap together. Ideally, you'd want to be doing one that covers a bit more colors than this, though having it be purple does give you that little bit extra magic. But this is basically just whatever best hero weapon you have that does damage in early game, whatever that happens to be. Black Manacle is just very accessible and happens to work for this team. But if you have something better than that, that ideally covers more color than what this team is already covering, then definitely put that there. Mostly put Black Manacle there for for the cheapness. Obviously, things like Ruby and such are stronger in this situation. But the whole premise of what we're going to be doing here is we're trying to not cast this, obviously. We do not want to cast the Mythic. He's on the team for show, not really to exist too much. But, of course, we're getting all of our Curse and Terror onto the opposing team. Every turn that goes by, we're going to be getting a small chance of doing that. But the main thing that we're trying to go for here is to get Sacrifice all the way up and then kind of go crazy from there. Casting this onto whatever the most populated gem is on the board, as well as purple. Actually, we could even go for Doom Skull here. We'll try for the Doom Skull poke, might as well. He has a lot of skill reduction, which is the reason he's in first slot. You're not actually casting these initially. He's mostly just there because of positioning. So now what we can end up doing is utilize all the Curse and Terror that he's applied, all 2 of them, in order to go do a little bit of damage. And earlier on in the game, that's honestly not bad, the amount of boost ratio he has. Later in the game, it's as 0 as it gets. But early on, honestly, not the worst thing in the world, though still towards the weaker end. But of course, we're just stacking a bunch of magic over and over and over again here. Unfortunately, we got a really small amount there because we're kind of blocking pretty heavily. We are using Archmages for that really high amount of purple. But as turns go by, he does keep applying effects. So yeah, look at that. He actually got a kill. He did something. So we can now go and do this to poke him into damage range and then go and finish him off. Nope, he doesn't even have enough damage. Oh, no, now he does because he did Curse. Look at that. He did something. He applied Curse, so he has enough damage to kill. Otherwise, he would not have had enough damage to kill, and there we go. And then you kind of just keep doing that cycle over and over again until you win, though, of course, there are way stronger troops that you can end up otherwise synergizing it with that aren't him. But yeah, that is a very dead content Mythic. What is it? What's its associated kingdom? At least you can get that kingdom upgrade a little bit. Where is that located? It is located for Karkaroth. So, yeah, super dead content. Yeah, I really don't see a single use case that you will ever use this for unless you just started the game and that's like the first Mythic you ever got, in which case his boost ratio is okay. You're going to need something else to go apply Curse and or Terror to be able to get enough ratio for it. But beyond that, I guess you could use it like super early game, as his 16 boost ratio at least scales a little bit better in that situation. But anyways, we have a second Mythic to go over, more so as a reminder than anything. But of course, if you did end up buying the campaign pass, either the smaller one or the bigger one, we have our first ever shiny Mythic that ended up getting added to the game, the Gormungandr. If you don't end up having it, you're not missing out on much. It's basically just weaker Megavore. I've tried it messing around with it quite a bit, and in every situation, it just seems like it's doing worse than Megavore otherwise would be if you put it on your team. It does have some gimmicks going for it that are kind of nice, but more often than not, like 9 times out of 10, you're still putting Megavore on your team. So if you don't have it, you're not missing out on much. But he is the first ever Mythic to get shinied, which means his otherwise 22 mana cost could be lowered as low as 20. And the extra effect he gets, I believe, is just Barrier. I thought it was boost ratio before, but it's actually just the extra Barrier that he gets. Instead of Bless and Enchanting, it's Bless, Barrier, and Enchant, which isn't really that big of a benefit. It would have been a lot better if he had a bigger boost ratio so he could actually secure his kills, as this is probably the biggest thing that he ends up struggling with. So if you are free to play, when will you be able to get this? He will be available probably around January. They should be about a few months after the fact, so this will be in standard drop table in a couple months. Though realistically, you'll have to wait until he goes into Soulforge or Event Keys, but he will technically be in drop table in a couple months from now. And beyond that, the shiny token should be sometime in January or so. These we don't really get announcements for when they end up coming out, so it's kind of hard to tell when shiny tokens specifically go into drop table, but it's generally a few months after the fact, so by early next year, you should be good to go to try to get this thing. It's definitely stronger than the Mythic we got today, if nothing else. Though that's a really low bar. That is such an exceedingly below ground bar. But yeah, let's go mess around with a couple teams. I actually want to do the low rarity team first, because this one actually surprised me. How sometimes, honestly, just going low rarity just makes it work. But we're doing a Cockroaches build, something you tend to only really use in early game, but is a really good troop. And entangles an enemy and does mana drain, so it basically denies the 2 things you would basically need to do to make sure the enemy does no damage to you. Entangle makes it so they do no skull damage, and mana draining an enemy makes it so they can't cast on you. So effectively, this one troop can deny all damage from an enemy team, assuming they don't have immune to either of those 2 things. Also gets to create a bunch of brown, which of course the other thing that we're utilizing it for here is we are using a bunch of brown to mana accumulate into our pretty much pure brown team, other than Leprechaun, just to get the team rolling. So we're doing Wand of Stars for normal Wand of Stars things that you tend to do with Wand of Stars. We do have the mana drain thing, but in this situation, we don't really have that much mana on the opposing team that we need to mana drain. So at this point, we're pretty much just trying to bring them into kill range and go get our full mana. So our skull already chipped them into kill range. So what we can do now is just double check that we have enough damage to kill. We do. He gets a boost ratio based on, what was it, cursed enemies again? If the enemy, yeah, based on cursed gems. So he's always going to have those 2 cursed gems. So at minimum, he's going to get that 20 damage unless they match on their own. So right here, we're going to be getting a 150 damage. What you want to do is do this on something that you've chipped down with a skull or some other ability, and then you basically get a Megavore ability, while also getting some extra effects on him. You get your barrier, you get your enchant, you get your bless, and while he doesn't normally have impervious like Megavore does, the bless kind of gives him like a pseudo version of it in a sense. One big downside of this though is, of course, he creates cursed gems. So if the enemy takes 2 cursed gems, he's just going to lose all of his stats effects. It's one thing that can backfire really heavily on him, and this is an issue with all powered gem troops in general. Like right here, oh no, he didn't get enough. He didn't end up hitting it with it. But of course, the enemy could get enough of your own cursed gems to basically completely deny the effect that you otherwise would have done for yourself, which is kind of unfortunate. Speaking of unfortunate, Cocker just kind of ended up missing there, so we'll just go for Wand of Stars, get our last little bit of damage up. We are using this as our solo damage source. Of course, you could offset with other damage sources, which is what we do on the other 2 teams. But honestly, he's not the worst thing ever if you're running him as your only damage source. I was actually kind of surprised, as that's one thing that he has as an advantage over Megavore, is his base damage is higher than Megavore, plus he gets the boost ratio on top of that. That has its full effect with level 0 shininess, and the fact that he has a lower mana cost will also be able to get more mana for himself. So as far as, it's one issue Megavore had in the sense that it struggles to get more than one cast off, and even when it does, Megavore has a pretty small amount of damage compared to other things in the game that you could otherwise be running. But this thing actually does pretty well if it was your only damage source. So in this next team, we're running the Elder Dragon. It's another thing that synergizes really well with Cursed Gems. But one of the issues that it normally has is getting those initial curses off. But now we can do that with the Gormungandr. So we're going to be doing that with our 2 Cursed Gems per turn. The other thing that's nice with this is the way the Cursed Gems currently work, or all power gems, is they have a bit of an issue where they can override their own color, but they will not override themselves. So the Cursed Gems that we're creating per turn will not override the other Cursed Gems that we're creating off of the Elder Dragon. So give us a little bit extra turn chance that we otherwise would not have had with the Elder Dragon, making Elder Dragon even more viable than it has been in the past. This is decently useful because it does get to eliminate 3 of all magic from all enemies. This is particularly good earlier in the game when magic stats are a lot lower, but even at higher stats, it's not that bad. Most things, even in endgame, have relatively low magic if you take like 10-20 extra turns on them, which can basically completely zero out their magic. And with a team that's hitting a lot of extra turns, it's honestly not as hard as it sounds to go and get when you're extra turning nearly every single time you end up doing something. So this team, we do end up having Fair Fire here. However, we still have the premise of needing to hit them into kill range. So we are going to just get a little bit of mana there. Unfortunately, a huge miss there. And of course, as power gems do backfiring on our own team. Luckily, we have that backup bless to keep us protected from our own backfiring of curse. And I think we're finally in kill range now. So the whole premise is to get that kill range and just to AoE down the enemy. That we have gotten them into kill range. And yeah, just keep poking them from there. We should just be able to go do our last slot then to go get our last little bit. And I'll be perfectly fine. As you can kind of see here, his conditional need of needing to get them into kill range is the biggest thing that makes this not as viable compared to Megavore. The whole fact that you need to like deliberately put something on your team just to ensure that you end up getting to secure kill, like right here where we're doing it with Rope Dart and Ubistet to kind of get them into kill range. Well, more so Rope Dart. But you have to invest a lot of your team to kind of make them work, and it's a lot different than Megavore, where you just plop them on a team and you're good to go. It's a lot more conditional as far as how much of your team you have to build out to even make them function. And it's the biggest downside that he has that's probably not going to make him too viable in the future. But he's not bad. He's definitely a decent Mythic. He's a really fun Mythic to mess around with. But he's not really particularly meta in the current state of game, and likely will never be in the way that he's just set up. But he's a fun Mythic. He's definitely not a bad one. He's definitely one that when he's in drop table and stuff later down the line, might be worth considering picking up and everything. But overall, it's definitely, if you're not getting it and you only have Megavore, you're not really missing out on much. So what do we have here? Ubistet is in kill range, so we can just go for that, get our double kill. And then ideally here, we can use the Mythic to go get our final kill. If we can end up getting that last little bit of mana, just go spam a bunch of brown here. Luckily, he's creating that 2 brown every single turn, which is giving us more alignment that we otherwise would not have on the board. He is so blocked on mana. Can I take green or anything? Well, actually, we'll be able to use his other effect. Oh, or we'll just get the insta-kill there. I was going to say, we'll be able to use his other effect of having enchant, because he would have had full mana by that following turn as well, like 2 turns from there. So we would have had his enchant actually give him full mana there, which is one of the things that he gets every single time when he casts his ability, which makes him a little bit easier to get up compared to Megavore. We've been mentioning Megavore quite a bit this video, but of course it's the better version of him in most situations. As no condition to be able to go and 4 times armor tier the enemy. It does do less damage on casts, but does have the benefit of submerging instead of doing enchant blast barrier. And on top of that, it has really good trait setup. Impervious, so it doesn't really need the bless, and it has an 8% chance to insta-kill the enemy. It also has nothing that can really backfire on you, like the constant curse gems you're creating. While they are nice for mana accumulation, there's no backfire mechanic on Megavore, other than try to spam a billion extra turns and never getting a kill. But sometimes you do get a free kill, and just get a free kill out of nowhere for just taking an extra turn. Very rare, but when it happens, it's pretty nice and helps speed up whatever battle you're currently on. But yeah, Megavore is definitely still the better version of the two, but he's not bad. He's fun to use. He's at least a usable mythic, unlike the other one that came out today. I can't believe how much they nerfed Okra into the ground. Like, silence, guarantee silence ever, when we have that on an extra turn troop, if it ever comes onto an extra turn troop, is going to be so strong. So I understand why they went with something a little bit weaker, but gosh, they went with something so weak that this thing is just dead of dead. There's not a single situation you're going to be using this thing, which is kind of sad, because you actually can use... You can end up using Gorm. Like, Gorm is actually really realistic to go put into the team. There might be some restrictions or color restrictions where you'll want to run Megavore, but, you know, you'd just run this instead because you can't run Megavore. Covers a little bit more, but a little bit more categories than Megavore otherwise would, such as Divine, such as Drock Zoom, stuff like that. And, you know, lower mana cost. So if your team isn't getting as much mana accumulation, it does have a little bit of an easier way of getting up. And by the time you do get it to full mana with a slightly lower mana cost team, or, you know, slightly lower mana accumulation team, you'd probably have done enough chip damage where it already is in kill range, so you don't even need to worry about that condition, as you probably have already met it by the time a lot of times you get it to full mana. So there's a lot of things like that going for it. But those are the two mythics. The one that came out for Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest being the biggest skip I've ever seen, maybe not ever, but it is definitely a skip unless you're later in the game and just want the troop for completionist sake. Generally, once you have more than half the mythics in the game, you want to be going for every new Friday mythic for every single month, regardless of if it's good or bad. But if you're earlier in the game, this is probably a skip. Even its boost ratio for early game, it's just not enough to really bother with. You'll probably get more value just from doing a little bit of PvP and just using one of the immortals and just trying to scrap a team together around one of the better immortals, because yeah, it's just not enough damage. You literally will get more, we mentioned it earlier, you'll literally get more value just from using Atlantic, especially if you get it fully traded. Just go to Divinity Fields questline, eventually get this thing traded, boom, you got the new mythic, basically. It just doesn't have the occasional cursed terror, but it'll do more damage on its ability if nothing else. But that's still crazy though, that's actually more damage. But yeah, that mythic needs something going for him. They really over-nerfed it, because his ability was supposed to be weak because his trait was so strong, but then they nerfed the trait but then didn't buff the ability. So now he's just weak in every possible regard. That's kind of sad. And of course, as we mentioned with the campaign, last few days to go finish out that. So if you still want to go do that for any of the rewards, make sure to do so. And if you aren't getting this thing, you're not missing out on too much. Once you get your Megavore, it's basically the same thing. And if you do eventually want to get this free to play, you'll be able to get it as early as about January, though realistically probably a few months later than that, once it comes in through either Drock Zoom Event Key or in Soulforge sometime later next year. But yeah, it's basically this alternative Megavore for very niche situations, but ultimately weaker Megavore in most cases where you'd end up building a team around the premise of 4 times armor tier. But anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. All 6 teams that we went over in the video will be in the description if you want to go and copy paste any of them. And yeah, we'll be going over 8.8, I guess, a little bit more next week. We kind of covered it in the Monday video. Most of the things are, you know, you can kind of see like the text change, which is probably the most controversial thing with it. Most of the things don't affect it until Guild Wars, though. Which we don't have until 2 weeks from now. I think it was originally going to be next week, but they ended up delaying it in case the patch didn't get out or something. So we have to wait 2 weeks. Oh yeah, one thing we can check. Can't we check what the troop is now? No, I thought they changed that. Oh yeah, we could change it here. Okay, we can actually see this. So it's shiny token for, wait, who is that? That's one of the Nagas. I can't actually tell who that is by looking at it, and doesn't actually check. But this is one of the things. Oh yeah, it says right here. Token for Viper. Yeah, this is one of the new things that came in 8.8 patch. We could actually check this now. I'm pretty sure Viper is pretty bad. Let me go double check. Which one is this? It's a Mista Scales troop I'm forgetting about, so I'm pretty sure it's dead content beyond belief. It deals a bunch of damage to an enemy, poisons and charms them. What could they possibly do to this ability to make it worthwhile? Unless it like triple poison charms. Like imagine if it poison charms all enemies. That could be worthwhile. Deals 3 damage to a random enemy when an ally casts a spell. Yeah, this thing is really weak. It goes down to 12 mana cost for a legend though, which is kind of cool. Once it does end up getting that. Yeah, and this thing is getting auto extra turn or something. The only two things I could see that would make this even remotely viable is if it gains extra turn, or if Poison Charm one enemy becomes Poison Charm all enemies, in which case that would be a little bit better. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure. I haven't checked his spoiler threads, or even if it even mentions it. But yeah, unless this becomes 4 times or gets extra turn, I don't think this thing is going to get enough of a buff with shininess or its extra enhanced ability to be able to be used. It's good. They really chose like the weakest one. Like obviously they weren't going to choose Tesla or something. That'd be insane. 13 mana cost Tesla with even more damage. But they really chose like the bottom of the barrel for that thing. That's probably going to be a skip too for next PvP season, but we'll have to see what the extra enhanced ability is and everything. But anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Best of luck with everything, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.